The Miami Dolphins got in trouble. A lot of trouble. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said that, quote, investigators found tampering violations of unprecedented scope and severity. What did Miami do? What did the Dolphins do to, tampering violations of unprecedented scope and severity? They contacted Tom Brady and Sean Payton. Miami was apparently contacting Tom Brady as early as 2019, back when he was with the New England Patriots. Apparently, Miami tried to recruit Tom Brady to Miami. They also tried to recruit Saints head coach Sean Payton. He's now, former Saints head coach Sean Payton. He retired, but in January of this year, 2022, without permission, Miami contacted Sean Payton's agent, Don Yee, about him being the next head coach in Miami. That was before he retired. Then when he did retire, after he retired, Miami did ask the New Orleans Saints formally for permission to talk to him about hiring him, and they were denied permission. But apparently, permission's nonsense to them. They don't care. They do whatever they want, and they got in a lot of trouble for it. Here's what happened. The Dolphins got found and caught tampering and trying to poach other teams', players and coaches. And here is the severe penalty they've been given. The Dolphins have had their 2023 first-round pick taken away, as well as a 2024 third-round pick that has also been stripped away from them. And this is for, quote, violating the integrity of the game. This is a big deal. Losing your first-round pick for next year, that's a big blow, especially when you hear why they got some of the stuff going on and some of their goals as a franchise. You're like, oh, man, they really wanted first-round picks, apparently, and didn't work out for them. On top of that, on top of losing the first-round pick for next year, the third-round pick for 2024, Dolphins owner Stephen Ross has been fined $1.5 million and suspended through October 17, which is the first 6 weeks of the season. Look, losing your first-round pick really, really sucks. That's a big deal. But for the Dolphins owner, that's not a very harsh penalty. $1.5 million is nothing to him. He's a billionaire. He's a billionaire owner. He blows his nose into $1.5 million and never thinks about it ever again. Now, here's the big angle here. There's a lot more to talk about. We will in a second. But I want to first say this, is that there's one person, surprisingly, who's a part of the Miami Dolphins who hears this news. Oh, we lost our first-round pick for next year. And he takes a deep breath and probably feels a sigh of relief and a feeling of, oh my goodness, this takes a lot of pressure off. Guess who wins when he finds out the Dolphins lost their first-round pick for next year? Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. They're not going to have a first-round pick next year, and so it's going to be even harder to replace him. I thought that this year was Tua's final shot, his final opportunity, and now I think he might have 2 years to prove himself. And I want to go to Patreon. I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to read it early. We got to write in on Patreon about this, so I want to try to find it if I can and bring it up. I was going to do it later, but Daniel wrote in on Patreon. Daniel said, what does Tua have to do to, quote, prove himself? If you were the GM or coach, would a slightly above average statistical year and one and done playoff appearance convince you to commit to him long term? What does Tua have to do to keep his job in Miami? I think there's a lot of answers to this, lots of outcomes and lots of ways he could do something good to keep his job. I think winning a lot of games, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, let's keep him around. Or if Tua has a great year, if the Dolphins are bad, but statistically he kills it, I think the only thing Tua can't do this year is be the reason why Miami is losing football games. Like that cannot happen. Ideally, he goes out there, he kills it, he puts up big numbers, and they win. But I think if they just win and he's okay, they're going to keep him around. If they lose, but he's still killing it, they're going to keep him. He just cannot, like I said, he cannot be the reason why the Dolphins are losing games this fall. If that's what's going to happen, they're going to pick a quarterback in the second round. They're not going to care. But I do believe that, in a weird way, not having your first-round pick next year takes the pressure off of Tua Tagovailoa just a little bit. Like, okay, hey, I got to do all right, but they're not going to have an early first-round pick to replace me with next year. That's a good thing for Tua. There's a couple other things I want to talk about here. Number one, I want to point out that the NFL put this out after Deshaun Watson was given a 6-game suspension. I'm a bit of I like conspiracy theories. I enjoy going, is there more to this? And I do wonder if maybe they waited, the NFL, waited to announce the penalties for Miami, hoping it was going to distract people away from the fact that Deshaun Watson only got suspended for 6 games. And later down the road, I think they're going to give Deshaun Watson a harsher penalty, try to get good PR from that. I think this was kind of hey, let's hold this for a second and wait till Deshaun's stuff comes out. Because it was like dominoes, bang, bang, back to back, and that did not feel like a coincidence to me. Now, during their investigation, the NFL found that Miami never intentionally lost games in 2019. The NFL said they didn't tank. That's their official way of putting it. Remember, former Dolphins head coach Brian Flores accused Miami's ownership of encouraging him to tank. And here's a weird thing, though. The NFL investigators did find that Dolphins owner Stephen Ross reportedly shared his belief that the team should prioritize their draft position rather than their win-loss record. How does that play out? How do you prioritize your draft position instead of winning and losing? Tanking. So basically, the NFL admitted that Stephen Ross, the Dolphins owner, wanted to tank. They just couldn't catch him hard enough, I guess, right? They probably didn't have anything in writing. I would even, let's be honest, again, conspiracy theory Zach Schaumler believes the NFL would want to hide that. Even if they discovered the team was tanking, I'm not sure they would want to admit that publicly. I think, in fact, it behooves them. They benefit from pretending, we don't know what you're talking about. They didn't tank. They weren't trying to lose games. I don't think they were, because the head coach, Brian Flores, was trying to win. But the Dolphins owner definitely wanted to lose games. And I think that's another uncomfortable thing, because I think that sentiment is kind of shared by a lot of teams that are really bad. If your team sucks at the end of the year with 3 games left to go when you're close to the first-round pick, your owner can't say this, but he doesn't want to win games. He wants to have the number 1 overall pick and get the best player available. That's what your goals shift to. And while the coaches and the players are trying to win because their jobs are on the line, and losing games makes them look bad and playing badly makes them look bad, they are trying to put something good out for the rest of their career, the owner probably always wants the team to lose games at the end of the year if you're doing bad, because the worse you do, the better draft position you're in and the better player you get in the draft in the first round. So I think part of why they didn't come down so hard is that the secret knowledge around the NFL is, a lot of owners probably share that sentiment, so we don't want to come down that hard on a guy for just thinking that. Now, they don't want to remove the appearance of the integrity of the game. And having a team trying to openly lose games and admitting that is a bad look. So I think that the NFL, like I said, swept it under the rug. Apparently, though, and they did say this, they admitted there was some kind of verbal statement that Stephen Ross, the Dolphins owner, made to his former head coach, Brian Flores. Brian Flores will tell you he was offered $100,000 to lose games, but it's a he said, she said thing. Or maybe he said. The NFL gave 2 interesting quotes about this. They said, quote, "There are differing recollections about the wording, timing, and context of the supposed offer. Also, a quote is that, however phrased, such a comment was not intended or taken to be a serious offer, nor was the subject pursued in any respect by Mr. Ross or anyone else at the club." So someone said something. Brian Flores will tell you, and by the way, I don't think he benefits by admitting this. Brian Flores will tell you, I was offered $100,000 to lose games. The Dolphins owner vehemently denies that this happened and blah, 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 blah. Dolphins owner Stephen Ross made some kind of comment to Brian Flores. He denies it. Like I said, Brian Flores will tell you, I was offered $100,000. I just feel bad for Brian Flores, because that is a horrible work environment. Imagine you just lose all of your trust with your boss, the guy who hired you. Losing games is bad for your reputation as a coach. No matter, I wouldn't take $100,000 to ruin or tarnish my reputation at all. That's easy to say from the back of a truck, but I just, it's all bad. And if I were Brian Flores, coaching at the end of the year, getting offered to lose games for $100,000, I would begin to feel like a figurehead. Like, What are we doing here? I'm trying to win, apparently, and you seem like you need a coach to lose games so that you can have a high draft pick. Then what happens? You fire me after we don't win enough? Like, it's a horrible thing. And I just, like I said, Brian Flores is the victim here, in my opinion. And Brian Flores has also said, by the way, that he was offered millions of dollars by Stephen Ross after he was fired to keep quiet. Who do I believe in this situation? The billionaire owner with something to lose here, like a lot? Or Brian Flores, who's an NFL head coach, and by admitting all this, risks ever getting a job in the NFL ever again? Well, at the time he said all this stuff, I was in my head quietly to myself going, my fear here is that Brian Flores is never going to coach again because people don't like when you spew their dirty laundry everywhere. I feel bad for Brian Flores because you get offered your dream job as an NFL head coach, and then this crap happens, and it would make my blood boil. It's so unfair. You're afraid to speak out. You're probably thinking, if you're Brian Flores, is this going to cost me and make it so that no one will hire me in the NFL ever again? I would feel that way if I was him. And I respect him for speaking out. It takes courage, in my opinion, and balls, and I think integrity. Now, Brian Flores, there's a good end to the story from his perspective. Brian Flores was hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers as the linebackers coach, and he's also a senior defensive assistant. That's the good part of the story. Brian Flores is too good of a coach to be sitting at home watching football like that. That's terrible. He's too good. I'm glad he's coaching somewhere, and good on Mike Tomlin, the head coach in Pittsburgh, and good on the Steelers for hiring him, giving him an opportunity to coach. And, Mike Tomlin had his back. Remember, they hired him in February after Brian Flores announced he was suing the NFL for racial discrimination. So that's a cool end of the story. Now, after the NFL penalized the Miami Dolphins, here is a statement from their owner, Stephen Ross. Here is what Stephen Ross said. The independent investigation cleared our organization on any issues related to tanking and all of Brian Flores' other allegations. As I have said all along, these allegations were false, malicious, and defamatory. And this issue is now put to rest. With regards to tampering, I strongly disagree with the conclusions and the punishment. However, I will accept the outcome because the most important thing is that there be no distractions for our team as we begin an exciting and winning season. I will not allow anything to get in the way of that. So he strongly disagrees with the conclusions of tampering. He doesn't think he tampered, apparently. He thinks he can do whatever he wants. Again, he's a billionaire owner. It doesn't shock me there. It's hard not to imagine the smugness behind his voice when you read that, especially when you deliver it the way your boy Zach did. Smug as heck. As smug as I can be, I guess. I don't mean to do that, but like I said, Stephen Ross is a billionaire real estate developer. The Michigan School of Business is called the Stephen M. Ross School of Business at Michigan. So, I find it, I want to say a lot of words. I try to have a family-friendly show. I cuss a lot on my other podcast, Zach Shalmer Talking. This one, we keep it clean. So let me put it as nicely as I can think to say it. I find Mr. Stephen Ross very unlikable, is maybe the nicest way I can put that. He is you ever hear a blank canoe? He's a blank canoe. I don't like him at all. Now, Brian Flores, the Dolphins' former head coach, also put out a statement. Here's what Brian Flores said. He said, I am thankful that the NFL's investigator found my factual allegations against Stephen Ross are true. At the same time, I am disappointed to learn that investigator minimized Mr. Ross's offer and pressure to tank games, especially when I wrote and submitted a letter at the time to Dolphins executives documenting my serious concerns regarding the subject at the time, which the investigator has in her possession. While the investigator found that the Dolphins had engaged in impermissible tampering of, quote, unprecedented scope and severity, Mr. Ross will avoid any meaningful consequence. There is nothing more important when it comes to the game of football itself than the integrity of the game. When the integrity of the game is called into question, fans suffer and football suffers. So he said, yo, you all but said he did give me a like he's basically like, you guys admit he wanted to tank, but why aren't we doing anything about it? And he put it in writing apparently too, which I I love that. I love the thought that Brian Flores is offered this amount of money, and the first thing he does is send an email probably to put it in writing and be like, yo, here's what happened. I need help. And let me give you advice, by the way, out there. If you're ever in a bad situation, put stuff in writing. Make a paper trail, because that will help you in court and whenever you need to prove that this happened. Make a paper trail. Brian Flores, as soon as he could, made a paper trail. Wouldn't shock me, by the way, if he called Bill Belichick and asked him for help, his former head coach in New England. In my opinion, Brian Flores is the overwhelming victim here. And he's right, by the way. Stephen Ross will avoid any meaningful consequences. He's a billionaire. $1.5 million and a 6-game suspension is a slap on the wrist, and it's shameful and it's frustrating. Now, here's a really interesting wrinkle, though, that I absolutely love in this story. Stephen Ross, Dolphins owner, I've said it many times, you probably know his name too much by now. Stephen Ross is suspended through October 17th, the first 6 weeks of the year. The first game back for Stephen Ross, week 7, is on October 23rd. And guess what? It's so juicy. I love it so much. The game will be Miami hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday Night Football. So Stephen Ross's first game back is going to have Brian Flores on the sidelines in Miami coaching for the other team. Oh, hallelujah. I love that. That's wonderful. Can't wait for that. Now, all this stuff, right? I have come to detest. I really do not like the Miami Dolphins owner, Mr. Stephen Ross, the pompous, arrogant, smug son of a gun. I really don't like him. And it puts me in a weird spot because sports are weird. I love Miami's quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. He's one of my favorite players in the entire NFL. I lived in Hawaii. I feel a connection that way. I love his family. I love who he is. I love his energy. I love Tua, and I root for Tua. And Mike McDaniel, their head coach, might be my favorite coach in the NFL. I love his personality. He's got a Mike Leach quality to him where he avoids actually answering questions by being interesting and fun. I think he'd actually probably be a great actor. I find myself rooting for Miami heavily. I love the guy. Mike McDaniel is a smart offensive coach. He's fun. He's entertaining. I want Tua to succeed. It's like a little engine that could. I just want him to do well. And so I'm rooting for them. I am. And I'm not going to let my hatred for their owner stop me from enjoying watching the Miami Dolphins, because Stephen Ross is not going anywhere. I just refuse to let him taint my heart and stop me from enjoying people that I like doing their job. Tua and Mike McDaniel and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and all the heroes I have on that team that I root for. I want Tua to do well. Mike McDaniel's my favorite personality in coaching, and I want to see him win. And so I think if you're a Dolphins fan, I'm not a Dolphins fan. I'm a fan of people. I root for people in sports, not teams. But if you're a Dolphins fan struggling with all this, like, I hate the owner, this is embarrassing, this is shameful, it's okay. No matter, your hatred isn't going to get Stephen Ross out of there. Stephen Ross seems like a piece of work. But it's okay to root for your favorite team, and I give you permission. If you're struggling with that at all, I'm going to root for Miami. I like the people there, except the owner. And so I think that's an okay way to feel, which is that, hey, I can't change the ownership situation at all. All I can do is root for the people I like. And I really do hope that they win in Miami, because I want to see Tua do well, and I want to see Mike McDaniel succeed. And that's how I feel.